All right. Well, thank you for whoever is joining us. I'm going to do a quick introduction of our panel today. So I'm Trample. I am the founder of CIB. I am currently based in Colorado, but originally from Aotearoa, also known as New Zealand, and I did a short stint in Australia. I've been skating for 9 years and 8 years in park skating. And today we have two very lovely ladies who I'm lucky to call friends. First up on the far left, I have Sojo. Sojo also goes by Every Girl, and she hails from originally America, but London is flirting around Tulum, Mexico at the moment. She has been known for her work with the founding Free Border Skate, which she launched, but has been doing some really amazing work in the last 15 months to bring skate to underprivileged areas. In the middle, we have Hasley, the CIB skate team. She also sews in her free time as well as being an incredible park skater. She's been in the scene for about 2 years, but has a 7-year skating history, including 5 years of both blocking and jamming Jacksonville roller derby. Well, thank you. Is there anything that I missed that you want to let anyone that's watching know about the two of you before we?
I also skated for Boston too in San Diego. So
You've been all over the place.
yeah.
And so,
Oh no, I have nothing else to say. Not yet, anyway.
well, thank you both for joining us here today. So part of the reason that we're doing these polls is to create opportunities for discussions around social justice issues, in particular how they play out in the park skating community, which is where CIB is mainly hosted. So there are many different areas to start out with. I think I'd be really keen to start talking about the roll call rollout events that have been taking place. Roll call specifically, I think, started last year in support of raising hate, launched this year in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. And I know that, Hazel, you've been very involved with the CIB Boston chapter, and in particular trying to get those sorts of events happening safely through COVID at this time. Do you want to start talking about that?
Yes, there are. Sorry, I want to start off by saying there's a bunch of us on our admin team. We just added a few people, but we started off with a roll call, and it was just small. We just did it in Salem, and at this roll call, we had our little discussion. It was just like a rollout through the back area of the city so that all levels could join. Then we went in the grass and we just kind of discussed some social issues. We started with just some questions out of a hat just to make it easier, because it could be that basic, just to start the conversation. If you don't know how to start, pick a question out of a hat. It's that simple. And then at the end, we discussed what we could do as a chapter or CIB Boston, however you would say that, a chapter, how we could give back more to the community. And from there, we all kind of discussed maybe doing like another rollout where we have all of the different areas of skaters come in. So we had derby, we had jam skate, we had artistic, and then we had park skaters. We have Ebony, Trillion number 0 or something. I don't know her name, sorry. But she's also on our CIB admin, and she took a lot of lead on making that project work, which was awesome. She, got all the people, because she's very involved in all parts of skating, as opposed to a lot of us are like I'm basically mainly park, but I'm going to start to dabble in an artistic jam Hasley style. But she does, she does the roller rink, she does this park, she does streets, she skates wherever people will let her skate. So she kind of wrangled everybody together. And from that, I believe we raised in donations that were generously donated by CIB Crew and Cheeseball Bearings and a bunch of other people. We raised $778 for the city school in Boston, which kind of promotes teaching leadership in inner city kids and low income kids, just to kind of give them guidance, et cetera, in life. And that was very successful. So that all started just from one small little meetup, and we ended up bringing people together and raising money for something good. So that's kind of where we want to go more with CIB Boston. We're trying to do at least something quarterly. We want to do like one rollout quarterly, one fundraiser quarterly, keep them separate so that it's a little less chaotic and we can focus on one or the other. So the rollout will be more like to bring people together, be outside, discuss what we can do to raise money or raise awareness to something. And then we plan the event. And that's where we would do like the fundraising and everything. So that's kind of the idea. And then we just have regular meetups where we just get together. But we are trying to be more cognizant as a chapter and just try to promote, just equality and just try to join in on the roll-ups and do what we can. And even just bring, as we said before, the different skating communities together, because they do tend to be like, you do tend to see more people of color in the jam skating community, and like where you see like a lot more Caucasian or I hate labels, sorry, in the park and the artistic scene. And then and then Derby is like a mix, but it's still, it leans. So it's nice to see everybody come together and just kind of like meet each other. I feel like the more I see people, the more I'll kind of like warm up. I'm a little awkward, but we do what we do.
I have two questions, but I've written them down. So, did you have anything to kind of ask about that particular event, or anything to add to that?
Which event?
No, I was just sitting
The
here
one that we
thinking,
just.
like, I was just sitting here thinking about how the event that I just hosted in London and like that I'm trying to host in like other places would just work really well with like what you're already doing, Hazley, because one of the biggest issues that I've had is like always being the only Black person at the skate park. And it's like not an issue until it becomes an internal issue, because I will say that like for the most part, there's never been any, and I don't know if you feel the same way, there's never been any like, oh, you don't belong here. But it's just like a very obvious feeling of like you are the only one. And I don't know, I dislike that a lot. So I've been trying to work on these unity skates, which are basically uh, skate meetups that are more workshops than they are just meetups, because the idea of like a meetup is just coming together to skate, but like really with the intention of upskilling people of color, because there is a large disparity there. One of the things that is like extremely obvious when you're out in California is that a lot of the park skaters are white cis females, and whether they're actually, whatever their actual, I don't know how to say it, sorry, but like whatever they identify with, there's a lot of just, there's like a look when it comes to the park skating scene. And for whatever reason, I've been invited into that space, but yet again, I'm still the only person. And it just like boggles my mind in a lot of ways. Like, why am I the only person that's being invited into this space so like aggressively? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So when that did start to happen and it became really obvious, for me, I'm always the type of person that like, if the door is open, I want to prop it up so somebody else can walk through, or like everybody can walk through. So I really like, obviously you've been doing this for a while, but just like, I really respect that, because I think it's important. And for whatever reason, there's a large demographic of people who just feel completely left out of it.
That's a really great point, and I think something that most roller skaters will relate to in a way is the wanting to feel represented within that space. And I see it, I relate to it in the sense of wanting to see more women or female identifying skaters, because something that I identify with. And when I first entered the space, there weren't many quad skaters, and there definitely weren't many females or female identifying skaters. And that was something that I personally really was focused on changing, but I didn't realize how I was pushing that and what I thought, and it was going to become an inclusive way. But because I see through my own lens, I didn't realize how white the way that I was pushing out, in the sense that I was reaching out to those that I had access to, which just continued to, while bringing in more roller skaters and while bringing in more females, they were also something that the community is currently is how it is to get into that pattern without being a of yourself, of your lens, and of your position, into actually going out and inviting skaters from different areas. And part of that comes down to utilizing your connections and just asking people. Part of it is also reaching outside of your circles. And I want to touch on something that Hasley was talking about in terms of reaching out to different disciplines of park skating. And I think that there's this kind of, it's slightly breaking down now, but I've seen it exist. There's this like barrier between different skating disciplines. You're a derby player, or you're a park skater, or you're an inline or quad, or your jam or dance. Like, there's all of these different disciplines, and I feel like we kind of create a barrier between them. You can't be both. You can't skirt between those two regions, whereas in reality, some people don't know that they enjoy something until they've tried it, and some people need to be invited, and some, especially if they're not seen in it. If you look at park skating and all you see are white presenting skaters, then that doesn't look like the kind of you're going to fit in or feel invited, even if you are, even if when you did go there they were. But if there's not that representation to start with, then sometimes you actually have to go out and ask people to come and join, and let them know, hey, I want you to come and do this. I really want you to come and try this, and I'm actually going to help show you the ropes as well.
The thing, that's what's so important. It's like having people come into the space and not only say you're invited, but also say that I've like volunteered myself as tribute to like teach you, upskill you, get you to where you need to be. Because like, people can come to this space all they want to, but if, just like anything, if you're like 100 years ahead of us, like then the space never really becomes ours, because we always become the novice, and like that's disheartening in a way, because like, for instance, with the meetup that I did, it was all kind of like a prelude to like the fact that I had already been teaching one girl named Storm Skater, Aishwarya, how to like drop in and how to carve. And she loved it so much, but she's like one of the best jam skaters that I've ever met. And she just like flipped into this park skating environment and became like really good, and is probably already better than I am. But like, I can only take her so far. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can only get her to like the foundation and the basics. And when there's like no people there who've been like practicing for years, who are like, okay, no, I'm going to take you the rest of the way, or I'm going to show you the rest of the way. It does just leave a huge gap. And sometimes it feels intentional, if I'm honest.
Well, and I think that's beautiful things about the event that you is that you were intentionally inviting people and say, hey, I want to show you, I want to break down this barrier. The entry into park skating is the scariest things. Look at that green juice. The entry into is the scariest things. And so having someone there that is willing to put themselves in kind of a vulnerable spot as well, because by volunteering to be someone's tutor or someone's coach in that initial stage, you're basically saying like, I'm your safety net. I'm going to come and I'm going to do my best to safely introduce you into this thing. And it was incredible to see how many people, like, I mean, the class signed up, filled out right away, right? And
yeah,
this has been something.
Within a day, I had 20 people, and I was like, oh crap, that's too many. I need to turn this off. So like, the desire is actually like really, really there,
And then part of it, like you were saying, is in that next level. So you can teach based on where you're at and where you feel comfortable, skill sharing. You feel like you can take them to this level. So what happens? How do we create a community where that information is being handed out and being passed on and being shared in a way that continues to grow?
That's what I think. I think it comes down to this. It comes down to friendship. And like one of the things that I think I've been disillusioned by, and you can like correct me if I'm wrong, is that like a lot of times like I'll go into spaces and think like, oh, I met this really cool white girl, now we're friends. I met this other really cool white girl, now we're friends, you know? And a lot of times I'm like, okay, well, if you and I became super cool super quick, then clearly you have other Black friends. Clearly, you know, I'm not your only Black friend. But what I was finding out is that actually a lot of times I was a person's only Black friend. So a lot of these friendships weren't actually developing necessarily because like they were making me feel comfortable, but because I was making them feel comfortable. And there was just this like automatic, like, okay, so let's hang out. And I was getting opportunities to like go into these spaces, but like the buck kind of stopped there. Because I think like in order for people to really feel comfortable to like teach and to learn and to be vulnerable, there actually has to be like a foundation of like friendship. And maybe I'm disillusioned and that's not a thing, but I do believe in friendship. I believe in like, let's get to know each other and share our passion. I'm gonna start
No, I can.
battling, but that's just my own opinion.
No, I absolutely with something like park skating, where there's an element of danger to it as well. Like, you want to know that the person that you're doing this with authentically cares about your safety. And while most humans, I would assume, would never want someone to hurt themselves or ever do that, like put someone in a position of danger, there needs to be a level of trust. And that's something that I think white people assume that they can get or give very easily. And I'm making an assumption because I'm a white person, so I can't speak on behalf of anyone that isn't. But
You're
if
white.
you are in a position, shut up. Oh dear. Wait. Please, smart.
I'm just playing, guys. Nobody trying to give me hate mail for this. I'm just kidding.
When you're had trust broken in different ways, and barriers broken and being taken advantage of, then there's going to be a breakdown of trust. In which case, why would you want to put there the injury? There's risk of embarrassment, failure, or whatever that might look like, because you don't trust the person that's inviting you into that, and that's perfectly natural. But how do we address that? How do we create spaces where that trust can be built so that we can continue to grow? I'm just putting that.
I mean,
That's the question, isn't it?
So what I'm trying to do, I guess my main focus has shifted to, I'm not like the most outgoing vocal person, but I am trying to rally people around me who can help get those ideas across, who can help figure out ways to do better so that I'm not just sitting there.
Sorry.
No worries. But I like to rally in numbers, just to kind of help everything along. Because I know I can procrastinate. I mean well a lot of times, but that's one way that I do it. I just feel like communication for me is like one of my big things, and it may not be the strongest, but I'm kind of more of the drip in the puddle as opposed to the whole ripple or the whole lake or whatever itself. Like, I just feel like all the little things that you can do for the better can lead to bigger things. So for me, I feel like conversations, having chapters, have conversations within their chapters. It doesn't have to be a big rollout, doesn't have to be this big to do. It's just important to get together and keep the conversation going of how you can do better and what we can do as a community, or even with your friends. It doesn't have to be like a skate thing. It's convenient as a skate thing because you have a whole community behind this movement and you have this love of skate that we share. So I feel like for me, it's easier to not divide and conquer, but conquer these, whatever issues or whatever event I may want to breathe to life, with other people who feel the same way.
I'm hooking on to what you're saying. Sorry, this is I automatically did it, and then I was like, you guys probably haven't seen this before. This is my wife. She does this when she wants to add to something. I want to address a couple of things that you said there. I think when we look at the overwhelm, so the issues that are going on at the moment within the skate community and trying to address them as a whole can be overwhelming because there's so many different conversation points that need to be addressed and so many changes that need to be made that if you try to tackle it as a single task, it just seems like it's not going to get done, in which case it doesn't get done because you look at all the different things that we need to fix and all the conversations we need to be had. I love this. It's a Jack White quote, I think, from the White Stripes, and he talks about being like a squirrel. And if you try to move all these acorns at once, you're never going to be able to do it. But if you just take them one at a time and you address them individually, then it becomes a lot more palatable. And so if we think about having these conversations and having like these questions, I love that you have this bucket or hat or whatever it was with the questions in there, just as a conversation starter of here, we're going to talk about this, and it gives people a way to ask questions and to start the conversation and to also give bite size. Hey, look, this is the thing we're going to talk about right at this point, and then it creates as much space as needs to be made for that conversation. I think that there's something really beautiful in that. I ask, can you have any examples of things that you would have brought up or things that are written down on those little pieces of paper for conversation starter?
The first one that we actually started with was what is defund the police and why is it important, which we spent half of the time discussing. Because there's so many different aspects. And it's, for me, that question wasn't necessarily about how are we going to bring change to defunding the police. It's, there is someone here who might not understand why it is important and why, because from that, we talk about voting and everything that's intertwined with just that one situation. So it brought up a lot of different disparities and a lot of different situations that other people are dealing with that people might not have seen it in that way or that light. So I feel like at the end we got a lot from that conversation just by really just, I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, really just like listening to each other, but a lot of aha moments when somebody would bring up something that like, oh, well, I don't work as a social worker, so I would have never thought of that. Good point. So yeah, that was one of them. I can't remember the other ones.
That's great. It's a great example because I think the other thing that's really important is actually talking to human beings in person whenever possible, or in a way that breaks down the barrier. And I am saying this ironically as we're on a long distance call, but being able to see your face and read your emotions or your reactions and your expressions really changes the way that information is absorbed and then how I respond to it. I think particularly with social media, which is where a large portion of our community engages, either through a forum or through a chat or through a thread on Instagram or Facebook or wherever it is. It's really hard to read the tone that someone's coming at something with, which can cause a lot of knee-jerk reactions because whatever emotions that I have placed around the scenario, I then input onto your words. So you can write one thing, and I've decided that anytime someone puts a full stop in their messages, that it's angry. You got a full stop, and I'm like, well, you're angry, and I'm going to respond to your anger with my anger, and then it continues to divulge. And I think we're seeing a lot of this play out at the moment in the skate community about really important topics, and people are having very intense, very passionate conversations about very important issues, and I can understand and appreciate the passion. I think where it gets lost is that it then becomes a battle of who's right, and the message or the issue or the scenario gets lost because people are so focused on trying to prove their point and so stuck in their position that they're unwilling to then have that conversation to move forward.
I don't know how you feel, Hazley, but I personally feel like a lot of the issues in the skate community are fake issues that people are making up. And please believe me that there are some real issues, and so I would never minimize anything. But there's people out here apologizing for like fake problems that I feel like are a distraction. And because roller skating is like a fun kind of jovial activity that I'm sorry if this offends people, but like there can be some childish and pettiness that's like brought into it for like no good reason, you know. And I'll just say it like very like plainly, like Estro getting on a live and apologizing because her black friend put her braids over top of her head. Like to me, that's a fake non-issue that like completely distracts from the fact that like people are roller skating, getting profiled by the police. Like that's a real issue. This is a fake issue. We cannot do all of this right now.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I feel like I live under a rock, especially when it comes to things like that. So I decided as soon as things started becoming a specific, I hate using witch hunt now because Trump uses it all the time, but since everything has become a direct attack, I feel like we've turned inwards on each other and we should never be turning on our allies. If you have a problem with something that somebody did that you find offensive, but that was done in the past, I think that's something that could have just been brought up to that person and discussed that way, as opposed to, I didn't get to see how everything panned out and how it was put on, but you know, publicly doing that, I also don't understand all the parts to it either because I only know what I saw through Estro's video, but I just think that we need to focus on the real enemy, which is racism, and not turn towards each other. People who are actively practicing and promoting anti-racism, and who is actively aspiring ally. Yeah, that's the term. I don't think, in my personal opinion, I just didn't think it was appropriate either, and it really kind of broke my heart a little bit, just because I feel like for a moment we were doing great as a community. Like everybody was kind of like together and like, let's do this. And then you start seeing all these fights, and then it's like you see this and you hear this, and I'm just like, I don't know. That's when I say I am here to skate. I am here to be the best representation that I can be, because when I came onto the scene like you, I felt very underrepresented. Represented. But it was more than that. It was more of a feeling like there are not people like you doing this, so why are you even trying? But, you know, I just rebutted with, this has been me all my life. I've always been the only, not always, but I'm frequently the only Black person where I do anything. So why is this going to be any different for me? So my goal was just to be, you know, the best that I could be. And if I ever did get anywhere or was successful, you know, just to kind of like be myself and just show people like you can do it too. Just be who you are. I don't know. I just feel like we're getting off track with that. And I agree with you in a sense that it does create almost fake problems. But the problem is those one little thing releases that into the world forever. And it takes a long time to get to everybody to correct that misconceived notion, as opposed to that initial misconceived notion originally getting out there. So I went on a long rant.
No, I'm glad you did, because I was like very curious. Obviously, we cannot speak for the whole Black community. We're not a monolith, but I am just I just feel like I'm in a mindset that like I've been doing social justice and racial justice work for almost 10 years. Like I lived in DC, you know, I worked for a consultancy firm that worked for the Congressional Black Caucus. Like these things have been on like the forefront of my agenda, and the distractions are nothing new. They just come packaged differently. You know what I mean? And so like you said, it kind of broke my heart that like this is where we are now. Like we're so angry that we don't even like have the tools in front of us to like really hammer away at like the big problem, you know. And like there are big problems in the skate community, and there's like even problems that like, you know, some of the same people that I'm talking about have perpetuated, but like those are not the issues. You know what I mean? Like the erasure of Black people in skating, that is a real issue. You know what I mean? Like packaging on skate brands with blonde girls and no black people to be seen. Like, that's a real issue. You know what I mean? Like, me hanging out with my friend and me putting my afro on top of your head, like, that's not a real issue. That's like me hanging out with my friend. And there's like so many like little petty things that are being brought up right now that it's like, it's almost like I'm ready to cash out and just like check out completely in a way.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that would just letting them win. Just gotta.
Yeah.
There's always going to be people, and I get it. We all handle our angers differently. I've 35 years later, I'm finding out that a lot of my issues are really deeded from anger that I just never resolved. And it's like, I try not to react right away. That's one thing that I take away with anger is if you at least give yourself time to think before you respond, you'll be a lot happier. And I just feel like maybe we should do that in the skate team. We have that opportunity where you don't always have to respond right away. Take the time to think. Take the time to hear the other side.
We don't in this current media climate, though, because everything is so immediate. I mean, you have stories that exist for 24 hours, which means that if you go and take an emotional hiatus from the internet for your own well-being, for your own mental state, then you actually can miss out on things that go on, and then you're sitting here saying, I didn't see that. And then, so you either find out through the rumor mill, through the grapevine, or whatever it is, but it just creates this, we're kind of stuck in this cycle with the way that it functions, in that to stay looped into the current events and the current issues, you have to be on there, not 24/7, but once a day at least, which doesn't allow that time to react, to cool down and process before you react. And I think that that's one of the big things going on, is that people that knee jerk, they see something and they see an interpretation, they see someone's experience, and I'm not trying to belittle anybody's experience, but you can only understand so much through the power of social media, and they can do some good, but again, it comes down to how you read them and the mindset you're in. And if something in there triggers or angers you, then you react out of that, and then that's when the things spiral, and it takes away from the original message, or it takes away from the bigger picture, which I think is a cycle that we're seeing a lot.
I'm definitely guilty of disappearing.
It's nothing to be guilty of.
I miss out on a lot, and I have to catch up through the grapevine. But I mean, for me,
what's like the most just to get away? Like,
I'm sorry.
What's the motivation behind disappearing? Is it just like let your brain like relieve itself, or is it more a mindset of like I'm going to hope this goes away? Because I feel like those are good.
Oh no, I'm trying to start a business. I'm sewing every minute of the day. The more I'm on my phone, the more I'm away from that. So I've been scheduling myself 2 hours for 6 hours a day of no phone. I put it away completely, so that when I actually do use my phone, I do have to catch up on other things. So it just limits my time. But for me, it's been a bit healthier. The problem with me is like, and I mean, who cares? Everybody has it. I have anxiety. Everybody has anxiety. So when I go online to skating is my safe haven, like most people, like that's why we love skating. It takes us to a better place. So a lot of times when I go online and I see these angry, and I start to feel it just by seeing other people's reaction, and then it changes. It has a catastrophic effect. So in that sense, I do also limit myself when it gets too agitated as with that as well. And everybody has their different views. Some people will be like, well, you should say something and speak up. And I'm like, well, I don't always have my words, and I am not speaking before I have my words. That's for sure, because you slip up once and there comes the wolves. So it's a balance of both. It's a mental balance. It's a work balance. It's a health balance. I love the internet, but we all know it has a dark side too.
I think something that's really important as well is making sure that you're speaking from an authentic place. Um, I know, Sojo, I've spoken to you a couple of times about responding to things that are going on, and we've kind of had a rapport going on with all the different things that have happened in the community the last few months of how to what to address because you want to address it, and what to address because they want you to address it,
Yeah.
and how to kind of, because you can, it's very easy to say the words that are going to appease the masses, but it's very easy to do that from an unauthentic place, and I don't think that that actually then leads to any kind of good change for the person or for the community as a whole. And so making sure that you're not just kind of going on autopilot and saying responding because you're being told you have to, versus actually saying, hey, this is important to me and I care about this and this is how I feel, or I want to address this because I have feelings about it, and here are my feelings, or here's my response, and it's okay to take the time to do that.
I think for me though, like I'm not gonna lie, like I'm extremely like considered when it comes to like what I'm gonna say. And I always feel like if what I say makes me look more like a trash person than what you did, I shouldn't say it. And sometimes people do things that make me want to say things that would make me look more like a trash person than what you did, if that makes any sense. So like these are all things that I think about that are like very, very like important. Like I don't claim to be like some super nice girl. Like I'm not like a sweetie pie. Like nobody's gonna say like Sojo's adorable. Like that's never like. But I am also like
But you
thinking about things
are.
like. But I'm also thinking about things. What'd you say?
I'm changing your name in my phone to Sojo the Adorable.
Yes, yes, the irony every time. But I mean, like, even from like one of our first conversations, like, you know how I am. Like, I'm a straight shooter. I'm like, no, girl, like, don't worry about that. Like, this person, that person, like, and I have a lot to say, but I think everybody has to like, not just because you're like not wanting to do it for them or trying to think how like authentic you're being, but you also just have to like be careful about the words that come out of your mouth, because contrary to like what we believe, like words have power and they can be used against you and they can be interpreted in many different ways. So like my feelings right now, I have a lot of feelings about a lot of people and a lot of things. I'm not going to say all of it because I don't necessarily think that um, it is a solution oriented comment, and that's kind of how I approach everything. Like, if what I say can create some type of solution, then I will say it. If I think that it won't, then I am like careful, and I will just say that like a lot of stuff went down over the last month with Planet Roller Skate and Indy. And the only thing that I could say that would be any type of solution oriented statement is that um, when people come into something that is supposed to be for the good with the intention of making money, they're always headed down like a dark road. And that's just my honest opinion. I'm not good with money. My husband would probably say something different. But when it comes to like making money, I just give everything I have away because I'm just like so happy to have a roof over my head that I'm like, it doesn't matter. But like, can't like it's just like the way the world goes. Look at every big corporation, every small corporation, everything. Like if you go into something saying like, this is for the greater good, and then your underlying message is to get money and to be rich and to be famous, like it's going to fall apart, whether it's today, tomorrow, or in a year. And I just say that for a lot. I say that for when I talk about the solution oriented, I'm saying that to myself when you see your followers go up, and I'm saying that to everybody else who's in the skate scene for clout. Like it's not going to end well if your ambition is fame, glory, clout, followers, sponsorships, money. It's not going to end well.
I think that's really that's very real. Again, it comes down to authenticity. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? I actually kind of want to go on a bit of a tangent, so feel free to pull back towards that if you want to. But I want to talk about there's a thing that's going on in the community, and it's been going. It's honestly, it's happened since before I joined, because it happened to me when I joined, and it was the why are you here? What are your intentions within this community? And I feel like there's a lot of skaters that exist within the scene are very protective of the scene. And at the end of the day, it is no one. It belongs to whoever is participating in it at the time, in the past, and that will be participating in the future. And it's a form of gatekeeping. And I remember when I very first joined and I had started CIB, I had a conversation with someone, and I'm not going to name them because it doesn't matter who it was. But basically, they asked why I was here and what I was doing with CIB, what my intention was, and how long had I been skating. And how long I had been
answer asked so frequently. I'm like, who are you?
Why does that matter? What does that matter when I can tell you who I am? I can tell you what CIB is and what the mission of this is. But what does how long I've been skating have anything to do with that? And it was the issue is that I hadn't been skating that long. I think at the time I was on my second year of skating. And so the person was under the assumption that my efforts within the community were not authentic because I wasn't a real roller skater because I hadn't been doing it long enough. And how could they be authentic because I did not grow up on roller skates, therefore. And I remember... but I see this happen a lot. I see this this distrust of new people in this community, and this is a gatekeeping in many ways of, well, we'll see if they stick around, we'll see if they're in it for good, and then what it does is it creates a really unhealthy balance between the beginners or the entries or whoever it is, just people coming into this space versus those that have been there a long time. And it's not everyone, by no means. This is not an everyone situation. It's often, again, just a few people, but those few people can make it feel really hard to get comfortable in a space that is already intimidating enough, because you're on roller skates and you're trying to do stupid shit. The last thing you need is someone to be second guessing your intention as to why you're
like, what are your intentions? Like, I was just trying to roller skate.
Well, I'm actually going to use you as a reference if you don't mind, Sojo. Too bad, because the video, the ad that you were just in, and we spoke about it just before it got up. You sent it to me, and you were like, oh, I'm worried about people, what they're going to think of this. They're going to call me out for making money off the ad, and I was like, no. Firstly, you have been put on a fucking ad. That's exciting. I don't swear on this, so apologies, Facebook. This is representation at its finest. You are there. You're representing a Black woman roller skating in a skate park who is promoting the business of coaching, and you sort of had this like imposter syndrome over, I don't know whether I can be here. And I was like, but 1 week ago you were hosting a clinic with like, was it 15 Black skaters in the community that you were also coaching? That's authentic. You were doing something, and you weren't doing it for money. You weren't doing it for fame. You were doing it for representation, and you were doing it to grow a community. So there was authenticity in both things. So if you make money off doing something that you're doing, that's great. That's just a bonus for you.
Okay, so but I will counter
like
you
there's a
in
lot
that,
of resentment that
not in a clothing way, but I'll counter you in the sense that I feel like I'm a realist, and I know where I am as far as like my skating abilities, and I'm decent. That's it. You know what I mean? I'm like, I need work, and when I get good, I'll be damn sure to tell you, because I'm not like disillusioned. Like I don't think I'm great. I think I'm decent, and I think I've got potential. I also think I'm a bit lazy, and all of those things, like I'm not lying to myself. Like at the end of the day, there's other skaters out there that are better than me that could have probably done better at that job. And I do feel really privileged to have done it, but I know just the way that the skate community is set up, when they see me go like into the bowl and I'm like only like, 2/3 the way up, they're going to be like, what the hell is that? Like
to counterpoint that also makes it accessible to somebody who might not. Sometimes seeing someone do crazy shit actually makes it less accessible. Like if the only skaters you see are doing flips and 360s and stalling on the toilet coping, that's accessible. I look at that and I'm like, well, good for them. I do that to this day. I see someone skate something, and
now you got a point though, and I can agree with that point.
It's real. So like you actually like showing different levels is important. It's not just all about the big tricks. And yeah, they're impressive and exciting to see, but being in a skate park and skating up and down the trains is also exciting. I had a lot of imposter syndrome when I did my first tutorials, and I was only 1 year into park skating, and they're hilarious, and I'm very embarrassed about them. But they also still they're still on YouTube, and I still have people come up to me and say, "Hey, your videos are how I learned to park skate," and I'm like,
Me
"Great, they're awful."
too.
Really? Ah.
Yeah, it's just like when Hazley told me, like, "Oh, you inspired me." I was like, "Oh my God, please no! Like, if this isn't good for you."
But that is proof that you don't have to be doing crazy shit to inspire people, and then that you always feel like you are valid in this community, whether you are learning, whether you are doing flips. I don't care where you are in the journey. That's an issue that we have. It's a barrier to entry in terms of creating a safe environment for skaters to come in and say, "Hey, if you're new and you don't know what you're doing, come in and we're going to show you the ropes and we're going to help you learn in this." And I really want to see more events like what both of you are putting on. I want to see more rollouts and more roll calls, but I also want to see the Unity skate. Is it Unity skate sessions? Is that what you're calling them?
Yeah, the Unity skate sessions, and I'm just like wondering like how we can all like work together on this. So it's like not just to, like me recreating the will and like basically piggybacking off of like the CIB chapter thing, but just like making it a thing that is like collaborative and like using the community that's already there to like pull in new pieces of the community. Because like basically the way that I see these things working is like there being a host, and the host doesn't have to be a good skater. The host doesn't have to be a skater at all, but the host would be a person of color who basically makes a call and says, "This space is for you." And then there being a teacher who is either a person of color or a non-person of color who says, "I am here to make sure that you all get the skills that you need, and that I am here as an open book, kind of, you know." And like that community, that CIB community has been learning for years. So that's what I'm talking about, like being light years ahead and having like, you know, a person saying like, "Hey, these people over here, they said we're welcome and they're going to teach us how to do this thing," you know?
Yeah.
And not from like a white savior complex or like, but from just a straight up like, "Hey, we want to get to know you and we want to make sure that like, now you're not welcome into our space, but this is your space. Now come get what's yours." Does that make sense?
It does, and almost I want to challenge you to the your space. Like it's our space. These are public spaces, but people become really possessive over them. We even have that within chapters where sometimes there's like zones and turf wars, which is infuriating because it should just be about the space itself. So I 100% agree with what you're saying. I just think we even that possessive language that we have, like this is my skate park, this is my chapter. No, these are community skate parks, and this is a community group, and there might be an admin or there might be someone that has really helped pushing and keeping the wheels running behind the scenes, but these are spaces for everyone and they need to feel. And again, it comes down to language.
So how can we make this
So,
like collaboration work for the people that are out there like listening that are like, "Yeah, I want to come into a space that is mine. That should be mine."
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Ainsley?
yeah, I guess two things. For me, that's what I guess we're trying to more push for with our chapter here is bringing all different people of all different backgrounds in. That's kind of like a bigger push for us. So, in a sense, loosely kind of modeling after that. But I do also know that Black Girl Skates, if they're Instagram, Ebony, who also helps run CIB Boston admin, she also is a representative of that. And they are doing a meetup where they're encouraging girls of people. I think it's actually, I don't want to put words in their mouths, but I believe it's.
Oh, oh no.
We did, we did stuff.
We lost you. Oh,
We can't hear you.
we can try that again. Maybe Kira out. No.
Yeah.
All right, we're having some technical issues. Oh, thank you. Also, someone has dropped, Jasmine has dropped the Instagram in the comment thread. Thank you. Hasley, do you want to take your plug out? See if that works? We can't hear it. Can people on the feed hear her? We can't tell.
I can't.
No. Um, Here, wait. I'm just gonna message our tech. Oh, Hasley, can you disconnect and reconnect? Just like reset, and we'll just we'll save the space for you. Um, yeah. Sorry, everyone. We're just having some issues. Hopefully, she's going to disconnect and join back in just a second. So, Joe, is there anything you want to touch on until we get Hazy back?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay, you're back.
Just in time, so I didn't have to go on another one of my long tangents.
One of these days, I'm going to get a laptop. That's not really in the budget right now.
So you were
Yeah,
talking
but
about
they're getting people Black Girl Skates. They're gonna. I knew they're doing one in Boston, so I can assume that they'll be doing them in other areas wherever they have like representatives and stuff. So that's one thing I know about. If you want to look into that, that is pushing for getting more skaters of colors of the park. And again, please look into that because I kind of briefly skimmed over it, so I don't have all the details and I don't know all the parameters.
No, that's great. Can I bring up the subject of how to authentically invite people into space? And I also want to add a counterpoint of, and this is something that's actually going on in the Derby community at the moment, is so that very similar discussions and issues exist within roller derby in terms of gatekeeping, in terms of representation, in terms of just everything that we're facing in the skate park scene exists within the derby community. And one of the number one questions that is being asked that I see from skaters, particularly white skaters, wanting to fix it is the representation. They go, okay, recruitment. Okay, so how do we recruit more black folks, more BIPOC skaters into these spaces? And one of the whoa, it is crazy windy outside. Sorry. Anyway, squirrel. So one of the counterpoints that's being brought up is it's not a good idea to go out and invite BIPOC into the community when there is so much work to be done because it's not a safe space yet. Where do you sit with that?
I would say invite your league mates first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your league mates of color or whatnot. Start with them. Like, hey, you want to come to the park with me? And then, you know, otherwise you can reach out to groups of skaters. Like if there is a group of jam skaters or artistic skaters or whatever, you know, like if there are a group of people out there who are more diverse or people of color and you're able to invite them as a group instead of having to go to them individually. You know, prefacing it, as I said, with things like that, it's a little easier to do as a group as opposed to like you yourself going out into the world and finding skaters of color, BIPOC skaters, you know, as opposed to you as you under CIB saying, hey, let's be more inclusive and how are we going to do this? And, you know, illuminating that. So it's two different facets. It's always easier to, I know I'm pushing like togetherness, but I think communication and being together is really what's going to drive everything to actually come into fruition.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my opinion on that would be similar to what I did, which is like there is a there's a lack of of me and Hazley types. There's a lack of black skaters, but you almost have to create a safe space. You have to partner with other black people. Like that's just end up because if I go into oh my God, I can't imagine. Like I would be so critical if I was invited to a space where they were like, we are recruiting black. We're looking for black recruits.
Sorry.
It's just white people. I'm like, I'm not taking you serious. And if I'm showing up, it's only to write a blog post about it afterwards. You know, like no. So you really do need a bridge. You need people like Hazley. You need people like me. You need people like that girl Stone. You need people like Groovy Quads. You need people like Just Seconds who've been to skate park, who are who can be a bridge, who can say like, I'm gonna hold your hand while you get to know all these white people who were not interested in knowing you a month ago. Like that's just facts. That's my facts. Now there might be some alternative facts out there, but those are my facts.
That girl Stone, though.
You're speaking. Oh my.
Yeah. I mean, but you also have to. The thing is like I as a black female, like I can see how it's a little frustrating from the other side to hear like, be more inclusive, but not knowing how, because there are also some places where you really don't have that many people of color. So what do you do then?
This is where we part ways because I'm like, I don't believe that. I'm from like a super duper 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 white town. There's 6% of us, but there's still a group of black skaters that have been hanging out since day one that if you haven't gotten to know them or they haven't gotten to know you, that's because something happened, not just because it was an organically, we never knew each other existed. Like that's how I believe. And I don't have an overview of the whole world, but that's just my feelings. I don't know.
But I'm more speaking towards you say collaborate and everything like that. Before there might not be people to collaborate with is what I'm saying. Or even like if I am the only, black female like in my CIB, which I'm not chapter, and everyone's now looking to me to bring diversity, it's like how exactly basically I see the question that she's saying and I'm still trying to get that answered for her because I also I get, see now I'm getting tongue tied. I get wanting to bring more diversity, but if you don't necessarily have all the resources, what is a good way to do it? Like, so if, as you said, like if an all, white presenting chapter was like, hey, we're trying to get more BIPOC skaters, come skate with us. It would be like, how do you properly go about that? How, like, I mean, for me, I just say, I like the idea of hosting meetups where you say, like, this is to support BIPOCs, so this way they know, like, hey, for me, if I saw that, I would be like, oh, cool. Like, that's something I might want to check out. And I wouldn't even think that it wasn't even like, I wouldn't go so far into think like, well, who's it run by? Who is this? If I see something that's like, we want to celebrate skaters of color, then I'm going to be like, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, I think I might check that out. So I think that's probably a way by advertising it as such.
If people are like, oh, we want to celebrate like skaters of color when there's no relationship that's been built there. Like one of the main reasons why I even agreed to do this conversation is because like me and Lady T have a relationship, you know what I mean? And it's not performative. It's not, hey, like black girl, like I'm about to go do this thing with this other black girl. You want to be a part of it so we can celebrate black skaters? And my thing is like, I don't want to be involved in any environment where you're just checking off things and like hitting quotas. Like there's no genuine relationship that's been established between like you and at least one other black skater. That's where the issue is. So if you're asking like, how do you create a safe space? Go build some relationships, like.
But that's then that goes back to the first part. Like, how do you do that if you don't have access? Or and I know where you come from, it's like that, but I can only imagine like that there are places where, okay, let me see. I'm trying to think of, I don't want to speak for my own city or chapter, but prior to Ebony and I being on there, I don't necessarily, I can't say that there were other Black skaters. So in that case, as CIB Boston, what could they do? Because if we're saying that having an event that celebrates skaters of color or discussion of skater of color is too divisive, then how do you bridge that gap between I want to do something, but I don't want to seem like I'm being performative or like I'm trying to like play a role or, because it really is becoming this like, okay, I want to do something, but I don't know how because either way I'm going to get slammed. That's what I feel
I guess
like.
I'm seeing it from a different perspective because I just think there's like steps and like there's like in my opinion there's like 5 steps before you get to hosting an event as a white group of folks focused on Black skaters. And like it's just like when you go out and you start a church, you know what I mean? It's like you don't automatically just say like, hey, come to my church and give me money and so we can build a bigger church. It's like you go out and you get to know people, and if that means going and putting yourself into a Black space where you feel super uncomfortable and you learn how to jam skate, and then you start to build relationships and you invite people over. I mean, to me, it's just like grassroots community building. Like I work with refugees, and like my first inclination isn't to go into a refugee camp and be like, how can I help you? It's to build relationships and to extend myself to them and find out like who they are. Because it just feels like there's really not a whole lot of interest in a lot of these like initiatives of like actually getting to know Black people and understand Black culture. It's not just, it's like there has to be a two-way street. And I don't know Boston, but I'm just like, is there not a skating rink where you could like go meet
There
these
is,
people on their?
well, that's what we're doing here. We're gathering the people from different, like when we do our fundraiser events. All of our events from now on are going to be extended to all. We'll call them the quad community because we're talking about them in 4 different directions. We will be inviting everybody from the different skating regions and trying to promote just skating together. And we actually, Derek did a little bit of like a demonstration teaching. Like in our little fundraiser thing, we had 20 minutes to where we broke off and we said, if you want to learn like park skating basics, go with these people. And if you want to do jam, go with these people. So that everybody kind of got to like mingle and talk a little bit. So there's that. But I see what you're saying. That makes more sense. So I think that's a constructive way to do it is, if you are one of those people who are outgoing and can put yourself in that mindset, go out there and like meet people and bridge that gap. But it does start on the smaller level, as Sojo was saying, of just kind of like really getting out there and getting to know people before like trying to diversify, we'll say.
I would say like
think
with the skating community, like in London, it's really weird, and I don't think you can really understand it unless you're like there. But there's like 3 skating communities, unfortunately. There's the Black skaters, the white skaters, and the mixed skaters, right? And this like mixed skater thing is really happening as a result of like Playtone, which is an organization that I worked for a little bit, teaching like learn to skate. And it's like London is a very, oh, you guys want to see the puppy? It's like a very like
yeah.
diverse. Look at him. It's like a very diverse town anyway. But I found myself kind of like when it came to the park skating and not like the studio artistic classes, still being the only Black person and just like having to make a very conscious decision of just being like, can I come and skate with you, Black skaters, and be in that space? And like just going and being in that space for like a month before I was like, do y'all want to come and skate with me over here? And it does take work. And I think like sometimes, I think sometimes people just want to like, just, no real relationship, no foundation.
Well, that makes sense. That's why we're having this discussion. Sorry.
it comes. No, you're good. It comes back to that authenticity. Like if you authentically really want to actually see this change of representation and diversity in the community and these events in terms of growing the sport, then you have to be willing to put in the time to generate and create real relationships, whether those are actually friendships or whether they're just I don't want to because it makes it too transactional, but by reaching out to different communities and saying, hey, I want to work with you to try to diversify the scene, and we want to try to get these different skating communities together to grow skating as a whole. And if the intention behind that is authentic, then doing the work won't feel like work. It might take time. It might take more time than you would want because we're very, I think in society, we're so used to getting things now and we want things like instantly because we have the ability of Amazon Prime. It's like I can get something to my door in 2 days. Why can't I have more black skaters in my community tomorrow? I put a post up. I did this. Why haven't I fixed it? But instead, actually building those relationships. And I think both of you were touching on points that created opportunities. So actually going and just like having conversations with people and building authentic relationships behind the scenes, or going to those spaces and saying, hey, we're going to create a meetup where we're getting all of these different disciplines together to try to trade skills, and we're going to promote you and you're going to promote us, and making it a give and take rather than a take rather than, hey, my community needs better representation, so I need you black skater to come over here to make us look better. That's not authentic. That's going to flop very fast. That's going to be the same as what Sojo was talking about earlier with people coming in to make money off the scene. If you're just here for financial gain, then that's gonna end up failing very fast because your true colors are gonna shine through. And there's nothing wrong with doing that, but you have to be honest about it. So if you're authentic and you say, hey, here's the deal, I'm in this community, we're very, very, very whitewashed. And that's not because there are black skaters out there. We just don't do a good job of representing them and including them. So we're trying to do a better job of inviting them so that we can then include and then represent. Would you come in to this space with us and work with us to diversify it and to create opportunities? And if you don't like it, that's fine. If park skating is not your jam personally, there's no judgment, but come in and try it. And I want to help and show you the ropes.
I agree.
We have,
for me,
sorry, you go.
I was going to say one last thing because like, I think there is like me and Hasley see it just like slightly different. I don't think extremely differently, correct me if I'm wrong, but that also has a lot to do with, I think, sometimes not having, unfortunately, not a lot of empathy for people who are not like as outgoing as I am, because I just like always want to talk to everybody and be everybody's friend. And so I'm like, why can't you just like be my friend? Like, why don't you come and hang out with me, and then we'll get to know each other and we'll eat cookies and talk about our life, And I am like, why isn't everybody doing that, So sometimes, apologies for that. Like, I can't always see through like why people aren't just like wanting to genuinely get to know each other.
And for me, like this is kind of the whole basis of these conversation is like talking about this and, bouncing each other ideas back and forth and learning something. For me, I guess I see it from the opposite perspective, just because I'm not the most outgoing. I seem like I am, which has always been a thorn in my side. But for the most part, I'm not going to be the person to just go up and be like, hey, let's be best friends. If I'm in that certain mood and I'm on that day and we're skating, that's different because we're sharing this moment together. So it's easy to connect. But take skates off and I'm that meme, it's like, hi, how's the weather? So like for me, that's why I don't put myself in the positions where I'm going to be the person going out meeting people and like doing all the more adventurous things. I put myself in the position of, I would love to see this happen. How can I make this happen? Who can I get on my team to make this happen? And then I go from there. Yeah. But I mean, that just goes to show, and I like to show that you don't have to be the most outgoing person to make a difference, but teaming up with outgoing people does help. I've always had friends who are like very rambunctious and like just opinionated, those are like my favorite kind of people, or people who don't hide their feelings and who are 100% themselves. It's not that I'm not 100% myself. It's just I tend to silence myself a lot because I don't like to talk about things all the time. You know, it's not like my thing. But as I said, catch me on a certain day and I will not shut up. But so I like people who are able to do that. Those are the kind of people that are great to have on your team because those are the people that people want to be around and stuff. You know, I hope to, I don't know, be a little more. I try to focus on being welcoming because I know that I'm not, you know, always the least awkward person.
Double negatives. I'm not the most unwelcome you've ever met.
Well, I always like, you know, whenever if I know someone's new, you know, I will always like, you know, hi, blah, 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 you know, like I'm not trying to be your best friend, but I want to make sure that someone's acknowledged you and acknowledge your presence. Say like, hey, you're here, you're a skater, welcome. Like, you know, come back or how was it? You know, just to kind of like engage in the little ways that I can. But, you know, if someone's so outgoing that they start talking and like we click, that's perfect. That's usually how it happens. So it's usually, you know, I feel like, I don't know how I find people, but I find people. I found you guys and I haven't even met you.
We are right. We've just gone past an hour. We can talk. We've got another 20 minutes before we will get kicked off here. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up. Do we want to open questions up to the chat? Do we want to, is there anything else in particular that you were hoping to talk about? You know,
I would love to hear what people have to say or the chat. Can I see the chat? Is there a way to see that?
Do you have two devices? Because you can't on your. I got my my phone up, so I can kind of pull it up. So if anybody has questions, I have been kind of keeping an eye on it, and I haven't seen any direct questions. But if I have missed something, I apologize. Yeah, if anyone wants to drop anything in the bottom of the thread, I can just check it out. So if you go to the CIB page, Sojo, you will just have to click on the video and mute it. Otherwise, we'll get this like.
Well, if you see any questions,
I haven't seen any questions. There's some really great comments, so I encourage you both to go and check it out. People have been very much enjoying what you both have to say. I have a question. So if someone was interested in helping support the Unity Skate events that you're putting on, Sojo, what is the best way for them to do that? Because I think obviously trying to get some momentum behind it and just being unified in it will help it be a more structured, stronger, repetitive event so that people can almost repeat. Like if you can kind of tell me how people can get in touch with you or whether they should just go out on their own and do their own thing, what's the best way?
So basically, right now, my partner Don, he just interviewed someone for a community manager position, and we're like waiting to decide if we're going to hire that person or keep interviewing. But basically, what that person's job would basically to find an ambassador and to find a coach in each city that we want to host in, and me and you, as it stands right now, are going to host kind of like the U.S. inaugural event in Denver and put it on and just to kind of like get things moving. But the way that it's going to work is that people will put through an application that should be up on the website by the end of the week where they say, I want to be an ambassador, and they would be paired with a coach. An ambassador and a coach could be technically the same person, but the idea is to have like someone who's been training in the park for years, as well as like person of color who is already in the skate scene, maybe has been skating in the park a bit, but would not necessarily be able to train a group of people, and for them to basically work in tandem, for them to bring people of color and allies together. And it'll be a little bit more clear, I think, once the application is up on the Freeboarder website. But I think in a lot of ways, like I said, which is one of the reasons why I don't want to like do it all by myself, is because in a lot of ways it's like recreating the wheel and like trying to like mine information in people that are already actually kind of like they already exist within the CIB community. I think what really needs to happen is like for you and I actually to sit down and have a conversation about like what it looks like for me and like how it could look like once we officially launch it. But like my goal is by August 1st to have the applications like up on the website and people to be able to like apply and for people to start being able to plan their events. And the events and the ticketing system would go through the Free Border Skate website, and there would be like incentives for people who hold events. So we have like hoodies and T-shirts and stickers and stuff like that for when people host the events. Just basically to, yeah, not just incentivize, but like it is a lot of work to host an event and just get people like more excited because one of the things that I have been really, really fortunate about, and a big part of that has to do with like you and Moxie and um, other big people in the skating community who have been like, yes, I like what you're doing. I want to help you promote this. And so that's been really valuable. And it's gotten a lot of people excited to just want to like host these events without really any incentive. But the idea is to like make it like kind of a more organized thing, which is why we're hiring somebody to like manage that.
Awesome.
Hopefully that
Well,
answers
thank you
the
for that.
question.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, basically, it's the information will be sent out very soon. August 1st is the rough date, and you give some information about what you're going to be looking for then, and just stay tuned. There was a question from Kayla Woodward, who's a derby player that I know from St. Louis, who's also just been getting into park skating again recently, which is very exciting. And the question was, any suggestions or tips in to the way that Unity skate sessions are explained? Oh, you just did that. Sorry, there was a question above that. Doy. I'm interested in starting a better community lending program for skaters, especially new folks now. But we don't have any local shops and no rinks in the city. That is a great question. And I think that's one that, in terms of it's a barrier for accessibility, I think, and this is actually something that I think a lot of roller derby leagues should be looking into, is because they can't skate right now, if they have any gear that they typically use for their learn to skate programs, or if there are any learn to skate programs that exist, maybe partnering with them. So getting your local chapter to partner with them to get loaner gear, whether there's a higher cost that maybe they can try to reduce, or even to get a donation for a time, because I know that is something that's really tricky because skating is expensive to get into, and I actually discourage people to invest before they know that they love it, because then that determines how much they can invest if they're in that position. Do you two have any thoughts on that matter?
On how much people should invest or ways they can like get
Ways to
gear.
access gear.
Mm. Oh, kind of.
I mean, most people that I know, that people who've been doing that just put up things on their Instas and ask for donations. And sometimes you get surprised and get it from all over places. Because I know Roller Stuff did that when she did she has a Rewind Club where she teaches people to skate and stuff, well, youth. And she put out, she put out a post about it in stories and received donations that way. Jack's Markers did the same thing out in Oakland, and they get some good feedback from that. So just reaching out to your fellow internet people.
I also saw like someone posted on our Facebook group, like, "Hey, I really want to learn how to skate. There's a shortage, and I can't find a pair of skates. Would anybody be willing to like give me a pair?" And like 5 people offered her skates. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily suggest like going around and like begging online, but I mean, maybe I would. I don't know.
In that case, they need brake pedals.
But you don't know until you ask. So if you're in a position to ask, then why not? The worst that's going to happen is that no one says no. You're still in the same position as before. Or best case scenario, you find out that there are people that are very giving, and this community, when it wants to be, can be. So ask, and you might receive. There's a question from Beck. I live in a community saturated with systemic racism and privileged white people that deny their privilege due to socioeconomic reasons. We have no rank. Parks are very saturated with children. How do we spread the stroke among the BIPOC community without specific spaces at hand in this type of community?
Moo. So no, I'm kidding. My luck is
You can go at different times. I know this sounds crazy, but I know there's a bunch of girls out here who like to skate at like 6:30, 7 a.m. For me, I'm like, no, I'm dead to the world. But the skate parks are very empty early in the morning.
But no, that is a great point. I think, yeah, I mean, it sucks to have to navigate time and to get access to the space, but I think maybe just even while you're starting, because I think starting is one of the most intimidating times, and I normally encourage that going as a beginner in a busy time actually can hinder your growth, just because depending on the environment that you're in, skate throughs in general can sometimes be selfish. They want their space, they want their time, they want their lines, and they don't want to give up the space for someone that's learning. But yeah, just play around with that. That was a great point, Hasley. There was another one. I think we might be almost at wrap up time. We've got 10 minutes left. Someone was asking about chapters, so if you want to get involved with chapters, Hasley's actually a chapter manager, so hopefully she can vote. Easy it is.
No, not manager, admin team. I don't want sole responsibility of it. There's like 6 of us to be exact. So we have 6 people to make sure that the work gets done. And we have a lot of people who just love roller skating.
Well, I very much I advocate for more managers, more admins per group, because it spreads the workload and it also diversifies the styles of skating, the types of events that get put on, the locations of them. The second that you get one person, it suddenly becomes very much their perspective of how they want to skate and how they want their community to engage. And it can very easily become very narrow. And it's not because people are bad, it's just because we all see through our own lens. We all think for ourselves, and even when we think we're thinking for others, it's very easy not to do so. So if you are in an area and there isn't a chapter, you can contact us through the website and we can get you set up with one. If you're in an area where there is one and you want to get more involved, you can contact the chapter and just ask to join, and they'll be able to let you on. And there's a code of conduct, which basically is the community ethos that we stand by, and as long as you agree to those, which basically just means be a good human, then you can get involved. And I think we should probably take that as a cue to wrap up. I don't think there are any other pressing questions. If we did miss something, I apologize. Thank you, Hasley and Sojo, for taking the time to come and join in and sharing your experiences and your thoughts and your feelings with us. You're both incredible humans and fantastic.
Before we go, because I think there are enough people that this might actually matter to some people, what day did we say we would do the event in Denver?
Oh, so we are doing a meetup, Sojo and I, in Denver. We'll be coming into town. It's a mask mandatory social distance practicing session taking place on the 23rd of August, which is a Friday. And Hazel's like, oh, how long is it going to take me to drive from Boston? Is that bait?
Tempted.
Yeah, I'm tempted for you to come too. So I think you said 23rd of August, and we'll make sure that we get those details up on the CIB Denver page. It's going to take place at Aurora, but we will both be there. We'll be more than willing and able to give out some beginner tips to any new park skaters. So, if you're new, if you're a fledgling park skater and you want to come and just kind of meet the community and get involved, if you want to just come and meet this beautiful woman, then I also totally encourage you to do that, because I've actually only met her once, but we hung out. We had the best night. We skated together for like 5 minutes because I feel like you showed up right at the end of the session. And then we
take each other and make each other cry all the time.
Yeah. It's very true. Nice, mostly. But yeah, so we're gonna be having a bit of a session. I think there was also one more thing that you wanted to share, Sojo.
What was
stickers?
Oh, yes. Oh, I don't have. So I was thinking that the stickers were going to be like, you might have them. So I don't have like a. Okay, so freeborderskate.org. If you go online and you check in like 30 minutes, there is a really cool sticker that is a fundraiser for Free Border Skate, which again is the organization that I run. We bring roller skating to refugees, primarily in Lebanon, but we are looking to go to some other places. And 100% of the proceeds will go directly to Free Border Skate. And it is a homage to, like inclusion and diversity, and a little bit in the likeness of me and Lady Trample and our friendship. So I really love the sticker. I think it's really cute, and a roller skater designed it. Yeah, but if you go on freeborderskate.org in 30 minutes, you'll be able to see it. You should definitely snag one, put it on your helmet. Yeah.
The link everywhere. Is there anything you want to share? Hasley, do you have any events happening soon that people can come and get out to?
I believe that Black Girl Skates thing is August 2nd. That's all I can remember. Sorry, I'm really bad.
No, that's great. Well, all right.
It's
Well,
all we
I'm
have
gonna
set
love
in
and
stone, at least.
that's beautiful. And if anyone wants to get involved or see some of the rollout events, where's a good place for them to find out information about a hosting a rollout?
Good question.
Well, maybe we need.
I would just reach out to. I would actually just reach out to other chapters who have done it. Like if you're a chapter wanting to do it, as I said, you don't have to go it alone. Get information. I'm actually going to reach out to people to figure out how to do fundraisers online, because I'm circa like AOL when it comes to doing stuff like this. So I'm still on AIM.
We were texting earlier about slang. I thought she had sent me some slang, but she just had a typo, and I was like, good, because my knowledge stops at about lol. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody that has tuned in. Parting words: be kind to each other, be kind to the community, work together. We've got a lot of things to do to make the changes that are necessary. But the number one way that this is going to start is just by having conversations. So reach out to your friends, reach out to the community, and continue to put in the work. Any parting words from you two?
Just go make friends that don't look like you. That's all I have to
I like those both. Stay with these guys.
But well, thank you both. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and thank you to everyone who tuned in.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.